Hi folks, Ricky Tang here. Now, sorry for the extreme close-up. The bike's just behind me, and yeah, I'm just going to reveal it a little bit at a time. So maybe if I move my right shoulder a little bit, you can see a bit of the bike and maybe guess from there. Ooh, I think you probably could guess if you're a fan of older motorbikes. Go the other way. Right, I'm going to get out of the way now so you can see it. Yeah, Triumph Speed Triple 955i. That's what I swapped for my VFR 750 yesterday. The VFR, although I was really happy to have found it earlier this year, it hasn't really gelled with me, unfortunately. And the main issue for me, and something I didn't realise when I was a younger man or didn't notice, is on the VFR, the peg to seat height is really quite small, smaller than this. And it meant when I was riding the bike, it was quite a bent knee angle between the thigh and the lower leg. So I always felt a bit cramped, despite the fact that, you know, the bike's kind of advertised as a sports tourer, but back in the day, late 80s, it was a sports bike. So here we are with a Speed Triple, my first ever Triumph and my first triple. So the fact that it hasn't really cost me anything out of pocket, apart from swapping for another motorbike, yeah, I think that's worked out quite well so far. Now, if I take the camera off the tripod, we can have a little bit of a closer look. You know, you can see basically the bike is looking really rather clean. You can see some evidence of, you know, being weathered, being ridden in all weathers. There are some rusty bolts and the spindles are pretty rough looking. But most of the cycle parts are clean. And that is impressive, even under the engine, behind the engine block, looking pretty tidy in there. Even though the radiator isn't actually protected, that's in good nick, unless it's a new one. I don't think it is. Yeah, and overall, I like the look of this bike. This bike only has about 22,000 miles on the clock, so not very many miles. So that's really pleasing. And what I do like, because it's basically a naked Triumph Daytona, is you've got fully adjustable suspension at the front. And I have seen on the other side of the bike, oh no, there it is. Yeah, compression as well as preload. Preload's got a collar on the top of the shock for adjustment there. Now, I went for a quick 30-mile ride yesterday, no cameras, just to get a feel for the thing. And what I noticed immediately was the bite point on the clutch was really early. It was about there. And the bike was pretty much fully engaged in terms of the clutch. Or disengaged, can't remember which way around it is. So that wasn't great. And as I rode along for the next 45 minutes, hour or so, the biting point got even worse, got even earlier, to the point where at a standstill, I couldn't get it into neutral. I was like, oh dear, this isn't good. And the bikes have got a bit of a reputation of going through clutch cables. Oh yeah, also, when I was riding yesterday, I've noticed that this adjuster was nearly all the way out of the lever. And when I tried to get 3 more threads or 3 more turns just to pull it out a little bit more, it completely came away from the lever. So I was right on the edge of adjustment. However, when I got home and had a little look, I noticed that this adjuster and this nut was right at the end, and this threaded adjuster was all the way at this end and hanging out here. So I think maybe this screw or this nut was moving while I was riding the bike. Now, I haven't ridden it again since, but basically I've just readjusted this, and there's a little bit of play in the cable, so I think it's reasonably adjusted now. I have ordered a spare cable actually before I even noticed the badly adjusted adjuster, so I've got a spare now if I need it, and it's on its way. Look at that exhaust though. I think that was an OEM upgrade. That's a Triumph exhaust. It's not fully carbon, it's a carbon sleeve on a kind of maybe an aluminium silencer, but it sounds nice. Oh, that's what I need to do. I need to start it, don't I? So let's put the camera back on the tripod. There we are. Oh, one thing, camera. Now, Triumphs have plastic fuel tanks, or at least Triumphs of this era, and you can see there are some spots where the paint or the lacquer is lifted. This is the common issue with these fuel tanks, unfortunately. I haven't kind of quite got to the bottom of it, but I think it's essentially down to ethanol in fuel nowadays. The fact that ethanol is hygroscopic, I think that the word is, and it absorbs water. I think that's something along those lines. I could be entirely wrong, but yeah, lots of unfortunate little spots in the lacquer. Doesn't seem critical, although I haven't lifted the tank yet. Even that is fraught with danger. I think there's some hard plastic tubes at the bottom of the tank, and you've got to be really careful when you take the tank off that you don't crack the tubes. So I'm a little bit nervous about that. I need to do a bit more research. I've ordered a service manual, an English service manual for the bike, so I can kind of dig into the way the bike's put together. That's a shame. That seems to be quite common as well. It basically seems that this cover, the holes in the cover don't really line up with the holes on the top of the tank. As a result, when you do basically force it to fit the holes, you end up putting stress on the plastic cover. So I've already had it off once to put some Gorilla Tape underneath to see if I can keep it pulled together, but it didn't work. So probably end up buying a new cover for that, and then maybe enlarging the holes a little bit for a little bit of an easier fit. The handlebars I don't think are original. They're very wide, and I think and rather flat, so I will be changing the handlebars. It puts me too kind of far forward as a riding position on the bike, so yeah, I want to sit a bit more upright. So the bike came with these mounts and these mirrors, but I had to take the mirrors off to get the bike around the back of the house, so I've bodged on a couple of mirrors I've had knocking about in the shed. There you go, side 2. You might just to see again a couple of these little blisters and blemishes. I don't know yet what to do about that. I think ultimately the tank needs to have a lining put into it, like a liquid lining, which then sets and makes it more resistant to ethanol. But there might be another issue regarding the blisters. I'll do some digging. I can't say for certain. Looking pretty clean down here. Again, apart from the rear spindle, that's seen better days. One annoying thing is I think you've got to unbolt the seat to take it off. I'm not sure what that does. It might be a helmet lock sort of thing. Yeah, definitely not the seat. Oh, hold on a minute. That's something I didn't realise. The back comes off, but the front is bolted. Actually, not through these. That's actually for the fairing. There's a couple of bolts back here, which are actually only, well, they're not even finger tight. So let's have a little look under the seat. There we go. Oh, good bit of storage space here. So that's good. I was under the impression that this whole seat was a bolted item, but it's just a front seat. So that's quite handy. So you can get the back off for you know, access to this little bit of space here. Even a bit of space on top of the battery if you want to risk it. So yeah, not bad back here.
As you can see, I'm out on the road now, just after the little introduction to the motorbike. First little issue is this mirror is not tight enough that I fitted yesterday, and it's folded back on me once, so I'll probably do that again before too long. One thing that's quite amusing there is the speedo needle. If I can keep still enough. Look at it, it's all over the shop. That's that constant throttle. I don't know if that's normal, and a thing that must have really impressed owners and reviewers back in the day on this bike is the mid-range. You know, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but I think that's possibly the bike's best asset. It's got plenty of overtaking grunt. The engine does feel very smooth, and it just pulls without any kind of any fuss. And also, luckily or thankfully, the clutch adjustment I made yesterday on the bike has done a great job for the clutch feel now. The biting point is great further out now, but not at the end of the travel. And the clutch doesn't feel too heavy, and the pickup as you pull away, nice and smooth. So I don't think currently I have any clutch or clutch cable issues, which is good news. One thing that kind of put me off these bikes back in the day when they were newer is the low red line, basically. I just mashed into the red line really hard in first gear. Should have been looking at the rev counter. But it always seems to kind of run out of revs a little bit sooner than you'd expect it to or hope it would. But I'm grown up and sensible now, so I should be able to pay attention to the revs and use the rev range properly. Oh, it accelerates really well. Oh, another thing of note is that the rear tyre is a rather elderly looking Bridgestone BT021, and it's quite squared off as well. So I can't make any comments on the handling really. At home, I do have the Michelin Power GP2 tyres, which I had on the S1000XR for track days this year. The centre of the rear tyre on that one's a little bit flattened, but not as much as this one. So I think those tyres might see out their life on this bike. Yeah, it's not super fast, with about 100 horsepower maybe, probably less than that at the wheel now. But it does feel strong. The bike's weaving and wobbling a little bit in the bends, but I think I put that down to the high preload in the rear shock. The shock's probably just not working at this point, so the tyre's doing a lot of the work. Look at that speedo. Am I doing 70? Am I doing 80? Actually, I think I was doing about 50, officer. Bike's got no electronics, no electronic safety aids, no traction control, no ABS. And ABS, you know, that might have been nice because the front brake's really quite strong. Not a great deal of feel, but a good amount of power. Back brake, rubbish. For some reason I got very little feel, very little stopping power in the back brake, even though it looks like I've got some decent pads, maybe new pads. But the back brake is certainly nothing to write home about. Listen to this. Woo! It feels like it's handling reasonably well. Oh, didn't like. Oh, it kind of weaved a bit there though. Yeah, definitely got to sort out the rear tyre and soften that shock off. But when you roll off the throttle and roll back on again, if you could ignore the slightly wayward handling, oh, the acceleration's great. And it sounds amazing. I can hear it when you're on the throttle. Yeah, I cannot wait to ride this bike when the ambient temperature is more like 20 degrees rather than 10. Not even feeling that cold at speed. It may be that when you go faster, this little screen kind of deflects a lot of the wind off your upper body. But when you go a bit slower, more the wind hits you, if that makes sense. Less kind of deflection, it just kind of comes straight at you. Sorry, I just hit the camera there. But at higher speeds, yeah, it didn't feel like I was getting an awful lot of wind blast. So this screen, I think, is not doing a bad job. Oh, listen to that. Shame about the back brake. I use, now I've realised how poor this back brake is also made me realise I use the back brake a lot when I'm riding, especially at these sorts of speeds, just slowing down in stop-start traffic. Yeah, I tend to use the back brake quite often. And when I use this back brake, I don't slow down. So then I have to jump on the front brake. So back brake, it can't be that bad out of the box as standard. So I need to take a look at that. Wow. I guess that was third gear. That pulled really well. One observation I can make about the bike, and it's not really about the bike, it's about the crash bungs. You can see they are just forward of the knee, and that's the case on both sides, and that does make me feel a bit nervous. If I, heaven forbid, end up in a head-on collision on this bike, the first thing that's going to break is not the bike, it's going to be my legs. I don't like, my knees basically sometimes do touch these crash bungs, even now while just riding. I just don't like how close they are to my legs. Anyway, oh, get on, son. Yeah, this feels like a great real world naked performance bike. Geared for the road, tuned for the road. So now I think I'll hand you back to me in the back garden.
Yeah, I think it's a good upgrade from the VFR for me. The only downside is it's a naked bike. So on a little ride yesterday, there is a lot of wind blast, as you would imagine. It's a naked bike. My other two bikes are faired. The VFR was faired. So I have to get back into the swing of naked bike riding. And it is now mid-October, so chances are the first time I really take this bike out for a decent ride will be next June. Because probably in this country, the weather's going to be pretty rubbish right up until then. Anyway, that's enough babble. I hope you enjoyed looking at my new bike, my new old bike, and I'll see you down in the comments. Until then, take care. Ta-ra.